fancy graphics. This must mean it's a JDI racing video. But it isn't. It's actually a Gran Turismo 7 video. So why the change of pace? Well, GLR competes in a bunch of different leagues, and I say this at the end of most of the iRacing videos that I've done, that we race in all sorts of things. We race in GT7, we race in ACC, I race in iRacing. Sorry, that just kind of amused me. So, September was actually a really good month for GLR. We raced in 2 different endurance leagues. We had Kazi and Mikey in DTR's Road to 161 racing their second race, which was 81 laps around Bathrust. And then I also raced in GT5 Riders Endurance League with the Red Bull Junior cars. Now we're going to actually take a look at the DTR race first, and that's in the they're racing in the 2016 Nismo GT 500 car. They call it Group 2 in GT7, but that's what they are, based on the sort of super GT classic cars in Japan. And it was actually a really good race, involved a lot of strategy, and it really set itself apart from some of the usual races that we do. So here we are right at the start. And I'm not going to do the usual full commentary of this race, because this was a 2.5 hour long race. I don't got time for that. I have work tomorrow. You see, they did a rolling start and it hit pitch black. Now, props to DTR on this. They actually did a full day-night cycle for this race. They just sort of sped it up to account for the shorter lap time, or shorter race time, in that they've only got 81 laps. And I think that's actually pretty cool. So you're actually going to deal with time of day change, something that typically we don't really deal with, and certainly in GTS we definitely didn't deal with, because the game just simply couldn't handle that. Oddly enough, GT6 and GT5 could. Oh, Polyphony, please change. Now, what's unique about these cars, and you can really just see them flying around Bathurst, is these are high-power, high-downforce cars. That means you can really chuck them around these mid and high-speed corners really well, but at low speeds, they can get kind of squirrely. You heard a little bit of scraping there. I believe that might have been Deck that got a little bit of an issue going down the mountain. Deck is actually going to be the primary competitor in this race. Tron was also a very fast driver. We've raced against him in the teams events before. He's a really cool guy. And Deck also just a biblically fast car. I mean, he's just ludicrously fast. Now you see Mikey and Kazi taking 1 and 2. They qualified first and second. And that is a tremendous feat, particularly for Kazi here. As Kazi's been a bit out of commission this year. He's popped in a little bit here and there for some racing, and despite all of that, he really has not missed a step. So props to him for doing that. Props to him for jumping in on this. I mean, doing 2.5 hour long race is pretty daunting, and the typical races that we do around here are anywhere between 10 minutes to 30 minutes. That's sort of the standard length. See, the thing is that endurance racing doesn't actually have a clear-cut definition. Sure, we have the endurance races that are pretty famous, like the 6 hours of Spa, the 12 hours of Sebring, the 24 hours of Le Mans, Daytona. And what all those races usually have in common is, 1, they're long as hell. 2, they usually involve some sort of pit strategy and stuff like that. And 3, they also involve driver changes. So in a shorter race, obviously, you wouldn't have a driver change. So in, say like an F1 race, it's Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen in the car the entire time. but those races usually only go on for about an hour, maybe hour and a half. The sim racing equivalent of those kind of short races, like I said, are usually between 10 and 30 minutes. It's usually about the amount of time that is kind of typical for races. And 10 minutes is kind of on the sprinty section for like a typical race where you can kind of evolve a little strategy. Okay, they might push it to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. But the thing is that it's not really a true test of endurance. You know, those races, yes, okay, focusing on a track and going round and round and round really fast for 30 minutes is still challenging, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that in those kinds of races, they involve outright speed and your consistency. So your outright speed will probably carry you a little bit more. I'd say it probably contributes about 50%, maybe 55%, depends on the race. And your consistency is about, I would say, about 40 to 45%. The remaining 5%, and yes, I did do the basic arithmetic, even though I went to a California public school, I do understand math for some strange odd reason. Certainly wasn't because of school. That 5% is maybe in some strategy that they've had to kind of manufacture in these races. And what I mean by manufacturing is, well, you gotta boost the tire wear multiplier, and you gotta boost the fuel consumption multiplier to kind of work in some strategy. A really cool shot there of Kazzy and Mikey going down the hill. Mikey getting a really good drive. Ooh. And you see what I'm talking about these cars being kind of squirrely at speed. I mean, at these slow speeds, they are a handful. But in going back to my point, even up to a half hour, you kind of have to manufacture a little bit of strategy into it. So typically these races will have one pit stop back before they lengthen the pit stop time in GT Sport. You could actually get sort of a viable difference in strategy between, you know, one stops and two stops. That can kind of make things a little bit interesting. I enjoyed that. But in those races, there's only usually one clear-cut strategy, so the strategy is usually not all that important. In a race that's 2.5 hours long, and for this race in particular, where you're going to be doing pit stops, you know, every 10, 12, 14 miles, depends on what kind of strategy you're running, you can do 6, 7, 8 pit stops, and depending on how you allocate that out and how you gauge your timing and all that, can really make a huge impact. Now, in this race, yes, we have Kazzy and Mikey running, but I was actually running crew chief on this. I was giving the, sort of strategizing out the race with them and running the numbers, and based on some of the different strategies, I mean, there was about a 2 to 3 minute difference, and around a track where the lap times, you see the fastest time right now is at 1:51.2. That's a difference of an entire lap to a lap and a half. So you really have to think out how you're going to get the best possible time. And that involves strategy. And so these sorts of endurance races really make up, I would argue, 4 things versus, the shorter forms being only 2. And that is, first you have to have outright pace. Kazzy and Mikey certainly have that in spade. Both of them are alien class drivers. And both of them are similar in pace to each other. Actually, you see Kazzy has started to reel in Mikey after his minor spin at the bottom of the hill about 5 or 6 laps before. So you have to have outright pace. But the second thing is, and apologies for the siren if you can hear that in the background, the second thing is your consistency. You have to be able to hit your points, and you have to be able to consistently put out a lap after lap after lap. Now, in a half-hour race, that's all you need, but in a 2.5-hour race, you also have to weigh in your concentration. You have to be able to focus. And can't let your focus wane even for a bit, because then you can start making mistakes. And the last is your strategy. And as I already explained, that can really be the make or break for your race. And arguably, I would say all four of those contribute almost equally. See Kazi going in there, and we're going to talk a little bit about strategy. I'm not going to go too much into it because the Road to 161 follows the exact same format as this. So for the next race, I don't want to quite give away too much of our strategy going in. But here's how the team orders went down. We actually weighed in tire strategy and did some accurate timing and stuff like that. I was able to extrapolate it out. I actually made an Excel spreadsheet. That's how nerdy I got for this. Ooh, Mikey getting a little bit. He was making a slight error there. Unfortunate. But the thing is that these kinds of races, you really have to plan this all out. You can't just jump into it and expect to do as well as you possibly could. And so the strategy that we were using, we, like everyone else, we had to use all three compounds of tires. We had the hards, we had the mediums, and we had the softs. Obviously these softs are the fastest, but they grain faster. The hards are the slowest, but they don't really wear all that much. The thing is with these cars and the way that the fuel multiplier was, the tires never really wore enough, even with the softs, to really slow you down too much. So the softs were the play for most of the race. Now, I saw a lot of people doing strategy they would run the hards for a lap, they'd run the mediums for a lap, and then they'd run the rest on softs. Now, we didn't exactly do that. I know that Deck kind of noticed that, thought it was kind of peculiar, but that was actually intentional. But that's about as much as I'm going to say on that. Now, I want to do a quick shout out here to Richie. Now, Richie, he did the videography for this. He recorded the replay because it was too large to share. And that was really helpful to me because, we had two endurance races. I wanted to get both of them in there. And he was happy to oblige and put together all the footage for this. So, thank you so much to him. I do apologize for the color grading. Color grading in this is a little bit weird, and I think it's because of something with the file transfer. I don't quite know what it was, but Lumetri Color did a decent enough job. Just the HUD looks a little wonky to me, but you guys can deal with it. Now at this point we are looking at the second stint. Doing a quick flash there to Deck, actually. And I think it's just because he got his controls mixed, or Richie got his controls mixed up there. But again, Deck is very close. I mean, he was always within, 10-15 seconds of Mikey and Kazi through this, even though we were on slightly different strategies. Now, getting back to my point on the overall racing approach and sort of the ideas that we had for this race, I told them that you want to race at about 80 to 90% capacity, and for endurance racing that's really important because you can race constantly at 80 to 90%. But at 100%, what happens when you get a little bit out of your depth? Then you're off the track, you're in the wall, you've exceeded your abilities. So driving at 80 to 90% ensures that you're going to be consistent and ensures that you're not overtaxing yourself so you can keep your concentration up there. And at the same time, if at 80 to 90% you can still maintain a pretty good clip, well then you've got the speed in there and all you need to do is get the strategy down and now you have a full race strategy. And those were the team orders that I gave to Mikey and Kazi. And props to them, they followed it to a T and executed it beautifully. So that's my spiel a little bit on endurance racing. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Love to hear your guys' approach, because endurance racing, it's an acquired taste, I would argue, even in sim racing. But see, endurance racing is a bit of an acquired taste. Some drivers really love it, some drivers hate it. I personally absolutely adore it. And the reason why is because I'm the kind of racer that, I'm not quite as fast as Kazzy or Mikey. I'm not at alien level, much to what Mikey would probably say about me. I am, though, pretty good at being consistent. Now, my last EDTM race in the rain, I ended up in 11th. Spun out a lot. But that's because it was rainy and I didn't practice much. That was my bad. But I can be pretty consistent when I actually practice a race. And that's where my advantage comes in, where I can be faster over a longer period of time than someone who's going all out the entire time. And the thing is, Kazzy and Mikey are built pretty much the same way. These guys are quick, but they're also quick in some of the short races too. Now, part of the thing to work into your concentration, and you'll see bits of footage here where Mikey and Kazzy will sort of give back position, or might even be behind Deck, and Deck may even be in the lead at certain points. And the reason for this is sort of just the mixture of strategy. With Deck being the primary competitor here, it's really difficult when you see your competitor go by you. And you don't always, you can't really silence your mind saying, I need to pass this guy, I need to pass this guy. When you also have to tell yourself, he's on a different strategy. He's pitted every 10 laps, almost like clockwork. I, on the other hand, am extending that a little bit more. I'm also taking my tires, the other tires, the mediums and the hards, at different intervals than him. So you have to be able to play that mental math. That's part of the concentration, is being able to weigh all of this data that is going through your head while you're going around the track. And to be able to do that consistently for 2, even pushing it to 3 hours, well, that separates the wheat from the chaff, and these drivers are definitely the wheat. So speaking of them being the top class drivers, we're now going to take a look at the final lap. And at this point, Kazzy and Mikey are pretty much right on top of each other. There's about, I want to think it was about a 3.5 second gap between them, which is truly amazing after 2 hours and now 34 minutes into racing, that they were this close to each other. That's incredible. But the other thing is, we look at Deck, and I was watching Deck's stream while they were racing, and at this point, Deck's fuel strategy, he was basically driving on fumes. I was watching him. Now, he safely had 3rd place, but he was far behind the 2 GLR boys here. And it was kind of sad, but it was good for them in that they could just kind of ease up a little bit. They didn't have to quite push as hard to maintain the top 2 positions for GLR. But it showed that having a strategy, executing it properly, and really accounting for all the variables really does make all the difference. And Deck was able to make it across in 3rd, and props to him. Again, he is a ludicrously fast driver, and clearly one of the best out there. But across the line comes Kazzy and Mikey. what a win. And as a nice little shout out to Richie, we will watch him make his way around the track. He was unfortunately lapped, so he is 1 lap behind. Ooh, hits the wall there a little bit. But again, this track is brutal. Especially late at night. I mean, I have to tune up my exposure just to be able to race here. I can't really see the track when it's this dark on my monitor. But props to him for doing this for me. I really did appreciate that. Props to Deck for a solid 3rd finish, rounding out the podium, Tron in 4th. And again, Kazi and Mikey finishing 1 and 2. Phenomenal racing. Now, given that we are at a bit of an intermission in this video, I think it's about time that we take a word from our sponsors. And yes, it's the same one as last time, but I didn't have time to put together a new video, so here we go.
Nestled by the waters of Swansea, in the humble and quiet hillsides lay the finest chickens in all of Wales, freely roaming the countryside of this lovely Welsh coast, fed the finest grains to ensure the highest quality, always tended to with the utmost care, and brought fresh to your dinner table. We make sure nothing but the best is provided for your family. We pride ourselves with our unmatched quality, and you'll find the best chickens come from Mom's Chicken Farm. We feed ours the best, so you can feed yours the best. Mom's Chicken Farm, official sponsor of GLR Esports.
Yes, I have too much fun with those videos. And I know, repeating a video, it's sort of a little bit of a faux pas, but I am working on things. Some of you know that I'm working on Blender. I'm showing a few of my chicken-related shenanigans on the screen now, so stay tuned. But we're going to go to a different race now. This is the GT5 Riders Endurance Championship. It is a 4-race series in the Red Bull Junior cars. And we're just going to start off right here. We get the green flag. Now, I managed to qualify on pole. I forgot that GT7 still can't figure out how to do a proper qualifying round in their online servers, despite the fact that they have a perfect framework in Gran Turismo Sport. But I digress. So, in getting green flag, we come into the first and second corners, into the third. It gets a little bit dicey as we approach the tunnel here. You see that it looks like one of the cars there gets into the back of me a little bit and gives me a bit of damage on the back end of my car. Now, damage got sort of reworked after this update, and it made even the slightest contact cause a bit of damage. Now, it wasn't necessarily severe in this car. The handling of the car seemed to be relatively fine. They get a little bit extra squirrely than normal, but it seemed to be relatively okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about this series. Now, we're racing in Red Bull Junior cars. These are the sort of light on power and light on weight versions of the Red Bull 2014 race car. They have about 300 something horsepower. They weigh about like 600 kilograms. They're light. So they're basically like semi-glorified go-karts. But they're fast and fun. They top out at like 190. These things are nuts. Now that was just the first lap of the race, and the previous problem that a lot of drivers have will be that last corner there. Now, MGX, or Magix, as he's known, is right behind me. And then you'll notice my biggest competitor in this league is Loki. Now, we've already had 2 races prior to this. We had a race at Goodwood where I had an unfortunate DNF where my PlayStation disconnected from the internet, which was fantastic. And then we had a race at Laguna Seca. Now, Loki, he managed a phenomenal race at Laguna Seca, lapping the entire field. So let's give him a little bit of highlight. We actually jumped forward a lap. And Loki here is a great endurance driver. He is fast and consistent, makes only a few mistakes here and there, but he is a truly phenomenal driver and one of the top class at GT5R. Magix is also a pretty strong driver, very fast, pretty aggressive, and you'll see him make this move here. He cuts to my inside after that long straight, but goes just a little bit too wide, which gives me an opening here to then come to the outside and then the inside of this corner that leads into this braking zone, and I managed to take back the lead. Now, unfortunately, he got a little bit of damage coming out of that, and so he dies in the pits here, and now it's just a 2-horse race. Now, arguably, I think in hindsight, MGX could have probably kept up with us. He has probably about the same damage as Loki has. Loki actually has some front wing damage, and he has some front suspension damage. I only have rear splitter damage. I don't think it affected the wing. And so he could have probably gone through the rest of his stint with that damage and been fine. Maybe not have had the top speed, but would have been okay. So we jumped to lap 5. Lap 5 was the first time that Loki really started to make an attack on the first place. Now, going down this long back straight here, this is really the fastest portion of the track. He's not able to get past me, and it's simply because of the damage on the front swing that's causing him not to quite get to the top speed. So he pulls him back and basically gets the draft behind me, and that added pressure. Now he's just kind of occupying a little part of my mind. And back to what I was saying for the Bathrust race. Concentration is just as important as consistency, because as soon as you start losing concentration, you start to undermine your consistency. And that's exactly what happened here. I'm aware of me behind me, I'm looking in my rearview mirror, but I make just a small error there. And I end up getting front wing damage and front left suspension, just like Loki. But I have the added disadvantage of also having rear diffuser damage. Now it's still slight. The car is able to handle okay, it's able to hit the corners okay. But see, it's yet another thing that is occupying my mind. So we fast forward to lap 8, and you see Loki is starting to make an attack again. And he cuts to my inside here, and pretty much I just let him have it, because I think he doesn't have damage, but I do. Now I'm going to try and stay with him as close as I can, but Loki is just he is a top class driver, and right now I'm a little bit too much in my head, and that allowed him by, and that basically it's because of the mistakes that I made. I'm still lapping okay, and I'm still keeping up with them okay. But it is starting to undermine my strategy a little bit. So we fast forward to lap 20, and Loki has, right now at this point, about a 6 to 7 second lead on me. So I decide, okay, I could probably make it another lap, but I'm low on fuel, my tires are worn, I'm just going to dive into the pits. And here's where an interesting thing came to light. In this race, now in previous races, pit stops were actually a little bit quicker. They had 9 liters of fuel per second being added in, and this one is the default of 3, which made pit stops rather long. So my crew changes my tires, they add in fuel. And you'll notice Hornet and Rimus and Proac are going to get past me. You see just how long it takes to refuel a car. And I start losing positions, but the thing is, they haven't pitted yet. I have. And now you see Proac has finally gotten ahead of me there. And I finally get released from the pits. I put in 96 liters of fuel. That should last me close to 28. Now you see Proac there, you see Rimus and Hornet are battling. It's remarkable that already 39, 40 minutes in, that they're still that close to battling. And then you got Loki off in the lead. At this point, he's got close to about a 40 some odd second lead on me. Now granted, he hasn't gone into its pits yet. I have, but now he's going to dive into the pits. And this will allow Rimus and Hornet to take over the lead, but they are still battling. Look at them going side by side at the end of the hairpin of the back straight. Really top class racing from these two. You can see with the lag that goes on in Gran Turismo, it's difficult to race this close. I've noticed the connection's gotten a little bit better, but it's still not perfect. So now at this point, you know, I'm finishing up my outlap. My car is getting a little bit tighter. It's feeling a little bit better. I'm getting more confident with the grip. And it's all about trying to reel in Loki. Now, you see Rimus and Hornet, they take over the lead. Loki is still in the pits, but he comes out with 87 liters of fuel. Now, that's less than me, which means he's going for a shorter stint than me. But he is already out, and you see there's Proac. So Loki only lost 2 spots where I lost 4, well, 3. Now we jump towards the front, we look at the leaders here, and you see how close these guys are racing. Now they're pretty much almost going to be on identical strategies. They've been burning roughly about the same amount of fuel, and you've got Loki here lurking behind them, ready to retake the lead. And here's Proac. Now Proac is a fantastic driver. He, very, very clean and everything, and it's always refreshing, especially if you ever do the daily races in GT7. If you did them in GT Sport, you really do appreciate clean drivers. But we're going to see the difference between high fuel and new tires and low fuel and old tires between me and Proac. Because these cars, about maybe halfway through their stint, really come alive. But at the ends of their stints, they get a little bit squirrely. And at the beginning of their stints, they're kind of lumbering a little bit because the amount of fuel in there, I mean, 100 liters of fuel, give or take, whatever you take, there is a considerable percentage of the weight of the car, considering that the car is only what, 500 or 600 kilograms. I don't remember how heavy these things are, but not much. Now I've jumped ahead and you see how Guinness and Hornet are doing. Saw Hornet lagging out a little bit there. That's sort of the jittering that you're seeing. And Loki here in third going through the tunnel. Here comes Proac going into the tunnel. Kind of see the gap there. And then there's going to be me. Right as Proac exits the tunnel, I come in, and now I exit. So you see maybe about a 2-second gap now that I've reeled in Proac. My car is really getting comfortable at this point. I'm able to push it. But sitting in the back of my mind is I don't want to make any more mistakes. I don't want to get any more damage. Because as long as I can keep it clean, there's a chance that I could probably reel them in, or at least maintain second. But I, of course, want to have the lead. I dived into that corner and actually gained a pretty decent amount of time on Proac through there. And you see the leaders, Guinness and Hornet, they both go into the pits. Both of them have pretty much identical fuel. Guinness having 2 and Hornet having 3 liters of fuel. And I've probably narrowed my gap to Proac here to about a second. Now you see Loki here, he's going through the S's. We're just going to kind of see how the difference is now that both of us have kind of finished our stints and feeling a little bit more comfortable. Here I come, now getting into third, Proac assumes second place, and there we are finally through the S's. Now the gap between me and Loki is roughly about, at this point, about 16 seconds. My job here is just to ensure that I don't bleed any more of that time. So we hop on board with my car, and we can kind of see that I'm getting pretty close to Proac. Just kind of feeling him out, seeing where I can make a move. I slot in behind him, try and get the best out of his draft here. Because of how long this straight is, that does make or break a lap. Now I start gaining on him through that hairpin. Here through that kink and that kink, and I actually really slam on the brakes trying to avoid hitting him. But I am getting close and trying to make a move happen. Eventually I do, but, well, Proac is left, and it's about time. I'm just gonna head into the pits. So now I assume I place in second. Proac, you notice, was down to 1 liter of fuel. Props to him on fuel management, being able to get it around like that. And there's Loki going through the S's. You can see I'm pretty much at the straight there. Now Loki is a phenomenal driver. There we go, finally through the S's. That's what a 16, 17 second gap looks like. And now we're going to fast forward to lap 44. Now this is getting towards the end of my second stint. You can see I've got a little bit under a quarter of a tank of fuel. My right side tires are pretty worn. My left side tires are about halfway. But you look at this compared to me and Loki, you see both where we are on the track as well as our tires. Tires are roughly similar. He's actually done a little bit better of managing his right rear tire. And his fuel is lower. Now, the reason why I think the difference between the tire wear, particularly that right rear, is I think it actually comes down to our fuel strategy. He only put 87 liters in, I put 97. I have one extra lap on my tires. And so I think with the added weight, that's definitely contributed. Well, you know, write something down in the comments what you think that the reason for that could be. Am I right? Am I wrong? Who knows? I am just your humble JD, the parent marketing, the head of marketing at Marm's Chicken Farm. Do make the best looking chicken liveries. So now we're going into lap 45. My car is feeling really good. I'm right now in the low 154s, high 153s. It's about where I want to be. The other thing you may notice is that I haven't gotten any damage, which means I haven't made any critical errors in my racing, which is a nice sigh of relief. After 3 separate incidences leading to damage at the beginning of the race, it's nice to know that I'm able to keep it fairly clean and consistent. Now, I have had relatively open air, and the lapped cars have been fairly courteous. So I haven't had to battle too hard, and I haven't had to deal with any stupid errors by hitting the wall of the tunnel. Which, because of the HDR that's used in the camera on this game, you know, it changes exposure based on its environment. So you go from bright outdoors into a dark tunnel. Yeah, they do mess with that. It really does make things hard. It's beautiful for stylistic stuff. It's terrible when you want to race. I know your eyes do that, but they do adjust a lot quicker. Plus, we're worried about it. Could get a tinted visor, although we are going into the evening in this race. You see, Loki goes into the pits along with Hornet. Loki on 5% fuel, Hornet at 34, oddly. Why is that odd? Well, typically you'd run the fuel a lot lower. My guess is that he probably got damaged and just wants to go in and fix it. But for me, I'm still good on fuel for another couple of laps. I'm trying to shoot for lap 50 to pit. Makes my math easier. But I'm kind of keeping an eye on Loki. I see that he's still in the pits, still refueling, so I end up passing him. And I assume the lead. For the first time in this race since I relinquished it at the beginning to Loki. Marm's Chicken Farm car is back in the lead. Now it's going to be short-lived given that I am at the end of my second stint. Loki is starting his third stint. He is just coming out. He puts in 86 liters of fuel. So again, going for a similar length. And the way that it seems is that he's trying to do 4 equal stints rather than my almost relay racing approach, where if you've ever watched track and field and they do a relay race, they've usually got the fastest runners in the first and last spot, where the middle two, while fast, are sort of the mainstays. They're the ones that are just trying to keep the pace at a decent clip, where you know the first and last guy are going to be quick. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. Just settling in these sort of middle 2 stints. Longer stints, not quite as fast, but just to help me keep the consistency, because I'm trying to shoot for that driving at 80 to 90% of my capacity. I don't want to exceed it because I want to make sure that I can make it to the end without any more damage. The whole name of the game here is just to try to avoid damage again, because I don't want to have to deal with it like I did at the beginning of this race. Now you see Hornet back there, he is a lap down. But Loki's not anywhere to be seen. I've got probably about a 20-25 second lead on him, much like I did before. Well, I guess technically I lied. This isn't the time assuming it since the beginning of the race, it's the time assuming it since the start of my second stint. So now the roles are kind of reversed, where I've extended my stint, where Loki kind of is going on a undercut kind of strategy. But I'm starting to notice, yeah, the tires are feeling a little bit bad now. And I'm getting close to empty on my fuel tank. So I'm debating, well, I should probably pit this time around. Yes, it's a little bit earlier than I would have wanted. I would have wanted to go all the way to 50, but, you know, with this stint, I've done 25 laps now. I mean, actually 26. That's a pretty good amount of time. If I do another one of these, I should be able to make it to lap 70. So you see here, I duck into the pits, where I will unfortunately have to relinquish the lead again back to Loki. But something that's interesting here, now you notice that he does have a little bit of damage on the back end of his car, as well as the back rear, right rear suspension. So he actually dives into the pits with me. Now I thought this was rather peculiar. I thought maybe he made a tire error or something like that, because he's got 80 liters of fuel right now. So I thought that was rather strange. Now I didn't know if, you know, what exactly he was doing. I was very confused at this point. But, you know, let him make his mistakes. I will hopefully not make any more of mine. I put in 97 liters of fuel basically for another full stint, pushing for 28 laps if I can at all help it. But our next pit is going to be on lap 70. Now you see Loki has still maintained his lead. But the thing is that lead has shrunk. Before it was close to 20 seconds at the end of his second stint. Now that's come down to about 7 to 8 seconds. By the time my outlap really shakes out, it'll get upwards of about 10. That's a huge chunk of time to lose to your main competitor. To lose about 10 seconds worth just because of an error, minor lapse in focus. You know, it comes down to my 4 tenets of endurance racing. You know, you've got your outright speed, concentration, your consistency, and your pit strategy. If any one of those falter, particularly your concentration or your consistency, you're gonna have a bad time. And so my goal here is just to not crash. I'm not pushing the car too hard. Because again, we're only an hour and a half in. Now as we come up here on to my 49th lap, you want to take note that my gap to Loki is not particularly far. I've pretty much been able to stop the bleeding, and at this point he's got probably about an 8 to 10 second lead. You can see him there going through the S's. I'm not that far behind him. If you look at the map, I am now just getting through the S's, or just getting to the S's there. So it's not going to be all that difficult to at least maintain this pace. And so there's still a chance. The fact that there's only a 10-second difference between us about a half hour into the race is pretty impressive. So we're going to actually fast forward here and go to lap 56. And at this point, I've started to narrow the gap. As we're coming through the tunnel portion in the backstretch, you can see Loki is right up there taking the corner, and I'm not that far behind him. I can see him. And I was gaining on him by about 0.5 to 0.75 seconds per lap at really coming up to this point in the race, and that is considerable. You know, at this rate, I'm going to be able to catch up to him, and I'm asking myself really why. Is it because I'm actually that good? No. Well, maybe. I don't know. I'm always rather self-deprecating with my talents. I like to be humble, but you see, he just came out of the chicane there that I just entered in. So I'm gaining on him quite a lot. You can see me there in the background up against Loki. And the thing is that, unbeknownst to me, he actually has a little bit of damage to his car. I, on the other hand, do not. Basically, I'm now starting to get into my stride of this stint, and because the fuel is starting to get lower, the tires are warm, they're feeling comfortable, I'm feeling comfortable with the car, and I'm pushing it. I'm right now at about the high 153s at this point. A really comfortable pace. Quick, but comfortable. And that gap is narrowing. It's now probably within about maybe 4.5 seconds, give or take. Now Pro F goes in for his pits there. You can see him on the screen. Ends up taking on 85 liters of fuel for his next stint. We missed it, but Rimas had also taken a pit stop in there. He had basically just reached the end of his stint. So you see now I'm getting closer. At the point that I had passed through the tunnel, Loki was already through the turn in the last one. But now I had already exited the tunnel before he even entered into that turn. The gap is closing. See, at this point now I'm within probably about 2.5 seconds. He knows I'm there. And he knows he's losing quite a lot of time. And it's because of that damage. But see, at this point in the race, I don't really know that. So he actually dives into the pits, and with 53 liters of fuel, it's clear it's because of the damage. And now we have the pass for the lead. At the 1 hour 50 mark, I was able to properly reclaim the lead. It wasn't any pit strategy, it wasn't any difference in speed, it was simply because I was being consistent, and he had made a couple of unfortunate mistakes that made him pit a few more times than he needed to, and that allowed me to gain the lead. Now the question is, how big of a gap am I actually going to get? Now you notice that Loki did take on fuel. He put in 94 liters of fuel at the 58 lap mark. That means if he was to go for a no stop, that's about 35 laps on there. Right now I've got about a 32 second lead. I want to think it fluctuated between, it's like about 30 seconds, give or take. But the thing is that he's got to try and make 35 laps work. These cars really, at least when you're going all out, can last about 28, 29 laps. So you'd have to be doing some considerable fuel saving in order to make that work. I, on the other hand, am planning on pitting probably around lap 70. At this point, I'm thinking, do I have the win? Because now I've finally overtaken my main rival in this, and it's down to the fact that I was consistent and stuck to my strategy, and was able to gain the time that I lost from, crashing and having to repair the damage. The thing is, for the next 34 laps, can I keep it clean? So we're going to fast forward here to lap 61. And the reason why is because while I'm being consistent here and just really keeping an eye on the race, something is going to happen here that really confused me. Loki here, you notice, has some front splitter damage and right front suspension damage. Now I, on the other hand, have been fairly consistent. I've got about a half a tank of fuel. I know that Loki pit and put on some fuel at lap, I believe it was 57, 58. So right now, all I'm doing is just trying to stay in the groove, get around lapped cars, and just keep my car on the track, keep it out of the wall. And I'm also focusing on the changing of the lights here. It's actually something to note is because of the change in time of day, and this is something that racers actually have to do, and it's something that GT Sport players really didn't have to do, is that you can't really use shadows for brake markers anymore. You have to actually use landmarks. So in a lot of these areas I'm using landmarks because the shadows are going to be constantly changing. In GT Sport they didn't have a live lighting model like they do in this, or like they did in GT6 or 5, not PD. So all that's sort of how I'm getting around the track and navigating. But see, I've got myself a rather comfortable lead. Right now the lead is probably around 30 seconds, give or take. And I'm starting to gain a little bit of time. I think it's actually closer to like 32 now. Right now Loki is going through the penultimate bend there, and you see I'm already going through the S's at the beginning of the track. So what he's going to try and do is try and stop bleeding, and he jumps into the pits. Now I'm really confused at this. He's got 80 liters of fuel and he jumps into the pits. What the hell is going on? Now, this could have actually been this could be actually a really interesting part of his strategy, is if he does put on fuel, he could make it to the end. At this point now, it's only 31 laps to the end. Question is, does he do that? And he doesn't. And that's truly shocking because his car at 80 liters can't make it to the end. And I'm doing that math in my head. I'm realizing right now at basically the 159 mark, as long as I don't make any mistakes, I've won the race. Now, keep in mind, there's a full hour's worth of racing left to do, but as long as I don't make any mistakes, the mistakes that Loki here has made, unfortunately, have given me the victory. Now, I've got to stay composed here. I can't let the excitement of this go to my head because, again, there's still another hour's worth of racing left to do. I've got to keep this car on the track. I've got to keep it out of the wall. I've got to stay consistent, keep my concentration. Now, if you're wondering what I use for concentration, I actually do listen to podcasts while I race. Same thing I do at work is that I need to hear talking while I race, because passively hearing a conversation keeps my mind focused. Actively hearing a conversation and being a participant in said conversation leads me to crash. The D&D guys know that all too well. If I go silent, it's because I'm concentrating. But to avoid getting demonetized and YouTube pulling us off the air because the views of the podcast that I would mention do not condone the YouTube overlords. I will not mention what I listen to, but if you ever want to, ask me in a comment or something. Or join our Discord. We've got a Discord. We do racing. All sorts of racing. We race with everyone. I'm the only American here racing against Germans. And a Swiss guy and a Turkish guy. So we do everything all over the world at any time. So come join us. Just, you have to like Guinness, or if you don't like Guinness, just don't say it because Mikey will come after you. So we fast forward yet again to lap 69. Nice. And I want to take you on board and let you see a full lap, because at this point, my car is feeling really comfortable. Yes, my tires are worn, but my car is low on fuel and it feels really good. So we're going to come out of here, out of the very tight end chicane. And I just want to walk you through how I take a lap in this car. Now this car has a lot of downforce, so it really sticks to it. Now you stay far to the right, you cut in here, lift just a little bit, and I actually do shift down into fifth just to give it an added stability, but then it's just all power all the way just before the tunnel, and then you get on the brakes and shift down to third. Come close to the wall there, but you don't want to get too close because you don't want to dent the car. Come out of the corner, right at that sign, you brake, and you come into this turn, really clip the apex there, power out, and stay to the left here, then cut this corner, get as close to the curves as you can, right here, and you want to turn just before the tunnel ends, to get it lower than that. That was actually not a very good turn. Should have gotten lower, but oh well, my tires are worn and I'm 70 laps into a race. Now it's just all out. Make sure that you don't miss a shift or over-rev the car. So you don't want to lose any speed here. I do stay away from that wall in the tunnel just because the light changes. That's actually how I got damaged initially in the race. Brake hard right at one of the trees there and really get down in this corner. Shift down in a second just to help rotate the car. Then I take a wide turn here, just really straighten this up and brake right at the crest, down to second. Use all the track as much as you can. Brake right at the bottom of that hill there. And then you power out. And now what I'm looking for is I'm looking actually at this wall on the right side. There's this smud right here. Actually, I was a little bit late on my vocal cues, and I'm not going to change that in editing. That's where you want to brake. Get down to first just to kind of rotate the car through there, but accelerate out in a second so you don't spin out. And do not hit the wall on the left, because the pit wall is not your friend. And you go. Now, what's interesting here with, I think his name Toppy, I think is how you pronounce it, because Germans pronounce the T and the H. Basically, as a T, he's actually on medium tires, and I wonder why. So the soft tires actually do last a full stint. But to each their own. But see, at this point in the race, it's at 71 laps, I'm actually right within my window of what I planned. So, again, going back to the, the track and field relay approach, this last stint is going to be a faster stint. So it can be shorter. I don't need to fill up as much. That's kind of what I'm planning on. Still going to use soft tires, of course. Because you actually didn't need to change tires, and this is just minimum pits. But my car is feeling actually still pretty good. So while I was originally planning on pitting in lap 70, I still have enough fuel that I can make it probably to lap 72 or 73. So I'm just sort of feeling out the car, and at this point in the race, Loki has gained a little bit of time on me. It's sort of in the low 40s right now. But yeah, I think, now's about the time. I'm going to dive into the pits, make my final pit stop. Got 16 liters of fuel, which is not as low as it was before. So in this one, I did take a more conservative approach to my strategy. I probably could have gone later. And you see Hornet comes in behind me, about the same level of fuel. He's probably making his last pit stop as well. Mom's Chicken Farm boys there, putting on a nice new set of tires. I have no idea what brand. I would assume, Pirelli, maybe? It's, Red Bull teams and stuff like that. Other guys just jiggling their hoses because I guess they just invented soft body physics for GT7. And I finally get out and I put in 76 liters of fuel. Now you notice, that's, well, 1% more than I started with, but about the same length of a stint. See, Loki back here is just getting through the S's, so I've still got probably about 10 to 12 seconds. Now, I let that car by. He's clearly faster than I am. I'm still usually a little hesitant on new tires. So it's perfectly fine to let him by. I actually can't read his name because of all the jitteriness. Oh, it's Magix. I had to look at the standings there because of the jitteriness of the lag in this game. It's really terrible. Could you get your shit together, please? Now, I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm thinking, Loki has to pit. He can't keep up this pace. He has to pit. Because now he's closer than I would like. It's about, like I said, it's about 10, 12 seconds or so to him. I've got a couple of lap cars between me and Loki. But still, it makes me just a little bit uncomfortable. Now you notice, now the headlights are on, that it's starting to get dark. Now Magix goes into the pits there, so I fortunately don't have to battle him. We got Toffee behind me in his bright yellow livery. I have no idea what his livery actually is, but it is very bright, very distinct. But now I'm back being comfortable in my tires, and the distance between me and Loki is about maybe 10 seconds. Now you can see him there just coming out of the stretch here. Actually, he's a little bit closer now. He's actually probably closer, maybe about 8 seconds, give or take. So right now he's got his war face on. He is just trying to put the pressure on. He is both really pushing his car hard. See, he's flying through there. I usually do about 136, 137 through there to be cautious. He was flying at 141. That's nuts. Now Loki is just a top class driver, truly is. Very, very fast. And it's just neat to kind of have a real top class rival there and to actually be able to compete with him. So truly, I tip my hat to you, sir. He has been a great competitor in this league. Although I really do want to make a livery for him because it's stretching on his decals. He needs a JD touch. And sorry, it will have a chicken on. Gotta spread the chicken empire. I've already got Boomer on iRacing and he's gonna put one on his car. Yes, that's Mom's Chicken Farm. JD's Chicken Feed and Tackle, we feed them the best, so they taste the best. And editor Josh just remembered to put the chickens over the course map there, because they're cute. I have some interesting things in the work, because right now I'm recording this close to Halloween. I've got a spooky animation, I've got space chickens, my blenderiness is, I'm having fun with it. And now we fast forward to lap 81. At this point, Loki has just put the hammer down, and he has gained quite a bit of time on me. You can see him right there. He's now within about probably 2.5 seconds. And it's making me sweat a little bit. Because the thing is that I know in the back of my mind, I'm fairly certain that he doesn't have enough fuel to make it to the end, and it's worrying me. You see Magix and Proic, they go into the pits. Magix, I'm guessing, repairing damage. Proic actually low on fuel, so he's just putting in a little splash to make a mad dash to the end. But I'm watching that delta throughout this entire race, and the fact that he's gotten that lead back down after having a close to 40, I think it was a 48-second deficit at the basically the end of his last pit stop. He has made up a considerable amount of time. Now, yes, I've made a pit stop in between them, and he has not. But still, he has been leading an unrelenting pace. I mean, for a while there, he was, he actually had the purple time. He did a 152 something. I can't remember exactly what it was. So his pace is definitely faster than mine. But I am being consistent. You notice, I still haven't had any damage since the first stint. Which has made a huge difference. It means I haven't had any depreciation in performance due to damage, at least. Now, he's not quite close enough to get my draft, but he is close. And it's, I mean, we're 2 hours and 38 minutes in. And the fact that we are only 2 seconds off each other at this point in the race is just crazy. Now, if you speak German and you do actually want to see the entire commentary on this, GT5 riders do have this full race on their channel. I will put a link down in the description for that. Just a warning though, if you're listening to this in English and you only speak English like me, you'll probably only understand the word box, which is their term for pit stop, although it's a shortened word for it. Because it's, what is it, box and Anfahrt? I know, my pronunciation's probably terrible and I'm making every German cringe. Deal with it, guys. I'm American and I'm terrible at languages. So I actually lead a pretty good lap there, 153.5. That's actually my best lap. The fact that Loki's able to get in the 152s shows you how much of a top-class driver he is. I'm really pushing it. You see, I'm really taking a lot of speed there. Still not going quite as fast as he was through there, but it's pushing my limits personally. Now the gap has shrunk down to a little under 2 seconds at this point. And I'm just thinking to myself, pit. Please pit. Please go into the pits. Please. Because at first I thought at lap 62, 63 when he went into the pits, I thought I had this race won. But no, now all of a sudden I've got this ludicrously fast German coming up on me and putting quite a bit of pressure. I mean, I'm watching this delta and I'm sweating. But I can't let my anxiety about potentially being passed by a truly faster driver hinder me in any way. I have to stay concentrated. I have to hit my marks. I can't make any mistakes because I can't, you know, if he passes me simply because he has faster pace, I'll allow that. But if he passes me because I made a mistake, I'll kick myself. Especially because now I've got the race, but Loki goes into the pits. He was on 6 liters of fuel, so I was right. He did have to pit. But the thing is, I don't. And that right there was the move for the lead. Loki here, having to go into the pits, having to refuel. He's going to put on fresh tires, and he's going to fuel up just enough for about 10 laps. I've got the lead. I don't have to pit, as long as I don't get any damage or go off track or make any huge mistakes. This race is mine, because by the time Loki comes out of the pits, which he's put 33 liters of fuel in, I've got roughly about a 25 to 30 second lead back on him. So at this point, I don't need to push it anymore. My whole mantra of driving at 80 to 90%, now at this point, I don't need to drive even that hard anymore. So I actually start pulling back a little bit. You'll notice I'll start short shifting a little bit. Partly because I'm a little worried I didn't put enough fuel in. I was kind of right on the margin. But the other thing is that I now know I can make it to the end of the race. So we're going to fast forward here. And we come up to lap 92. So this is the second to last lap. I've been racing for 2 hours and 56, almost 57 minutes straight. You can see that the sun has pretty much gone down. The track is quite dark. And I'm just sort of cruising. You can see I'm short shifting. I'm really not pushing the car terribly hard. Not getting close to the walls. I don't need to make any mistakes. And in me driving a little bit less aggressively, Loki has gained a little bit of time on me. At the peak of his last stint, he was at 32 seconds and did dip down to about 23 to 24 seconds. But for me, I'm a little worried on fuel. You can see my fuel gauge there is blinking at me. But I'm not really pushing the car too hard anymore. My lap times, where before at this point would be in the mid-53s, are now in the mid-54s. I actually think I did a 55 at one point, and it's just because I'm just sort of cruising. And what was interesting is that I actually discovered something, because you saw that I was shifting in the S's. Not these S's, but the first turn S's. And watch as I take them on this lap, I actually don't shift. And I started doing that once Loki had gone into the pits, just because I was just trying to take it easy. I lifted a little bit more. I was actually able to carry a bit more speed. You see I did a 154.3 there. Not a great time at this point, but I don't care. I'm on the last lap. I've got a 20 plus second lead. Actually, that time I shifted. Well, ignore what I said, but before I actually did leave in 6th and was faster. But at this point, I'm looking at my fuel gauge. It's saying I've got 1.5, 1.6 liter, or 1.6 laps of fuel left. I've got this. Again, as long as I don't make any major errors, we're good. I just gotta bring this Marm's Chicken Farm number 28 home. But I am just over the moon. Now, at this point, my heart is just pounding in my chest out of just pure excitement, because I've got this race in the bag. Loki is in a fairly distant second, now at about 25 seconds behind me. Rimus is the only other car on the lead lap, and he is actually more in front of me than he is behind me. Now, props to him, he kept up a pretty good pace, and good on him for staying on the lead lap. But no one can really threaten my lead at this point. Except for me, of course. I could bin it, but I don't. And I haven't had any crashes or any damage since the first stint. And it was that consistency and my concentration throughout this race that led me to victory. So you see, I throw on the hazards, I start flashing my high beams. I am stoked! Woo! Getting that race win. The only thing I'm a little disappointed in is that it was at the 3 hour and 7 second mark. Wasn't able to get it under 3 hours, but I don't care. I got the win. Oh, man. You see Loki here, he's coming into the chicane now. Good on him, a good second place finish. Again, the pressure that he put on me and towards the end of the race, that was incredible. He finishes about 26, 27 seconds behind me there. Here's Remus. Coming in third. The only other car on the lead lap, aside from me and Loki. What a race he put on. His battle between Hornet and him was just amazing. So we'll just watch him bring it on home. And I believe this is about time that I should say, you know, like, subscribe, comment, share, all the YouTubey things. And thank you for sticking through this lengthy video. It was an endurance race in and of itself, as I did 2 commentaries for 2 endurance races showing at GLR victories. September was a great month for us. In October, shout out to Cordell getting the win in ACC after a 2-hour race at Spa in the rain. And we'll just end it here on my lovely Marm's Chicken Farm Red Bull car with Guinness and Chick-fil-A on it. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.